Welcome to the American Regulars Podcast. This is episode number 32. I'm your host, as always, JD Walter, and it's a wonderful time of year, guys. Maybe not insofar as all the turmoil that's going on in the world, but man, the sweet spot out here on the Great Plains is October. I mean, it's football season. You start getting deer showing up on your camera, the big bucks, they start coming out. And it's football season. What more do you want? By the time it hits November, who knows how cold it's going to be. We're going to get a blizzard. It's going to freeze over on us. October, usually pretty gentle. So, you get one tame month, damn near a year. It's coming right around the corner, so we're going to try to enjoy it. But I have to digress. When I say calm, I am just talking about the weather because the world is still a shit show for anyone who is thinking different. But that's okay. We're here to sort it out and console ourselves with the fact that we at least don't have the blinders on. I'm going to start today with an update on Ukraine. It's been a long time since I've talked about Ukraine, and it seems strange when I don't, because it's something I've really been invested in terms of, my time and researching it and everything. And at the beginning of this podcast, a lot of our episodes were on Ukraine. And it's not really that things haven't been occurring there or that escalations aren't extremely high. All that's still there. It's just the volume on everything else, whether it's the politics, the election, the Middle East, everything's just turned up to 11. And so it's kind of easy to get lost in that a little bit here and there. Today, I think it's just going to be easiest. One of the best sources you can go to, besides American Regulars Podcast, is the Moon of Alabama. And it's kind of a weird name for a website. It doesn't sound like a news website at all. Man, if you want good, or I'd say great info on foreign policy, they do a lot of coverage on basically U.S. foreign policy in general. Usually it has maybe something with Taiwan, usually Ukraine or the Middle East, Israel, and it's just a go-to. The guy's great. I believe he's a German. I don't know if he gives you his name, but I'm pretty sure he's a German or a German expat or something, and puts up really great stuff. Every once in a while there's an economic piece I don't prescribe to as much, but in terms of covering foreign policy, Moon of Alabama. And today we have one called, it's talking about Zelensky's recent visit to the U.S. I know Zelensky pretends to be on the front lines all the time, but sometimes he has to show up with his hat in hand at D.C., start, asking to pass the hat around, get all of his money from the U.S. taxpayers, mind you. And it's usually given to him not only begrudgingly, but usually with fanfare. They hang Ukrainian flags in the sacred hallowed grounds of the Capitol and all of that nonsense. And just remind you, Zelensky's term is up. He hasn't been elected again. That's postponed. It's a martial law type thing, but it's obviously for democracy. The lack of elections is to preserve democracy. All right. I'm going to just basically read this article, and I think it gives enough great information that it'll benefit us all. And I'll give you my 2 cents here and there, obviously, as we go through. All right. Zelensky's U.S. trip ends in failure. The Ukrainian, it says former in parentheses, the former Ukrainian president, Vladimir Zelensky, has failed. During his current travel in the U.S., his victory plan, a wish list designed to drag U.S. and NATO deeper into war, did not gain support. What this is talking about is one of the big asks lately was he was wanting the go-ahead. He wanted to get the nod from the dugout that he could shoot these long-range missiles deep into Russia, possibly Moscow. And it's about the only red line that we haven't crossed yet. Besides that and acknowledging to put, like, boots and forces on the ground with, American flags or NATO patches on their shoulders or whatnot. Even his most urgent request to allow Ukraine to use supplied long-range missiles for long-range strikes within Russia has been rejected. That is a minor victory, I'm telling you right now, for everybody who doesn't like the prospect of nuclear war. So, let's be happy. That's a good thing. I don't know how long it'll last. I don't know that this is finalized because if you remember, Biden was saying, well, we just can't send F-16s. That would be openly declaring war on Russia. And of course, we'll talk about F-16s later in this article. And they did this with armor. They did this with different missiles, German missiles, Shadow Storm, British missiles, or whatever. And they've done it all the time. Oh, we can't do that. It would be a red line we just aren't willing to cross. Oh, here we are crossing it. But for now, we'll take that as a victory. To justify its decision, the Biden administration even leaked an intelligence assessment which warned of allowing such. And then from it, intelligence agencies concluded that granting Ukraine's request to use Western missiles against targets deep in Russia could prompt forceful retaliation while not fundamentally changing the course of the war. So this is stuff we already know. But this is stuff they don't like to admit. And it's such a hard red line that they have to leak it because they still don't want to say that themselves. They want to leak it as a possibility that the deep states, the intelligence agencies are talking about. Yeah, okay, a forceful retaliation, while not fundamentally. So they're basically saying it would be us attacking them and they would still win. That's what it is. And we've said that for a long time. They're just now acknowledging it, but they won't come out and say it because they're born liars, saying something that's, man, it turns their stomach to have to speak the truth. So they have to leak honesty through intelligence papers, ironically. All right, the promise of another U.S. $8 billion gift in military supplies was offered as a consolation gift. We're getting off easy, guys. We're giving them $8 billion. And I think either the day before or the day after, we gave Israel $8 billion. Just taxpayer money, just burning through it while our republic falls. And all of these cities that were once these industrial hubs and booming suburbs just crumble and go to hell from migrants and crime. Anyhow, we give out $8 billion a day to despots and people committing genocides and some of the most corrupt governments in the world. All right. In the absence of looser restrictions to let Kiev use Western missiles, the White House has shipped the joint standoff weapon, the JSOW precision-guided glide bomb with a range of 80 miles for the first time. Now, this is like an F-16 launched gliding missile. But the F-16s can't even get that close to the border because there's so much anti-aircraft. So it's not as big of a red line, even though it's meant to be longer range, because it has to be dropped too close. The F-16s can't get that close. So they feel safer about this. So we try to sit there and make it look like we're giving our best effort. When I say we, I don't know why I'm saying we, because I'm talking about the neocons, the military-industrial complex, and the American empire. But they're trying to make it look like they're doing their damnedest to cross this red line, but even they know that is one bridge too far on this fool's errand. Okay, so aside from a rather small amount of additional ammunition, most of the $8 billion will be in payments to U.S. companies for the production of weapons, which Ukraine will only receive years from now. So most of this money's even down the road, if that's even possible. There's a good chance it doesn't happen. I'm sure we'll still pay the companies, and they'll build the stuff anyways, and we'll store it or give it to some other radical Islamist group or someone we're funding for a color-coded revolution. But it might not even make it to Ukraine, because Ukraine's on its last stand here. Okay. Now, Vice President Kamala Harris had a meeting with Vladimir Zelensky, and the article talks about it here. In her meeting with Zelensky, Vice President Kamala Harris urged to continue the war. Shocker. The woman with no ideas. Now, okay, let's just go through this a little bit. Ms. Harris, who had met with Mr. Zelensky a half dozen times since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, said that the White House on Thursday that she would ensure Ukraine prevails in this war, adding that President Vladimir Putin of Russia could end the war tomorrow. Yes, if he could. Now, it should be noted that if you have the ability to end the war tomorrow, that means you're winning. That's what that means, right? Or else you're losing and you're ready to concede everything or agree to whatever terms lose. And that's not what Putin's going to do. Like, she's acting like that's from a place of power. Like, he could end this war tomorrow. All he has to do is capitulate to us entirely. But, like, the cards are on the table. You can't bluff him when the cards are on the table. He knows his hand, and he knows it's a hell of a lot better than Vladimir Zelensky's. So, yes, he could end the war tomorrow. That's what his victory is. Like, that's why, because he's winning. Now, far be it from me to correct Vice President Harris too much. We've heard her in-depth, detailed speech in the past. Just what a buff she is on history, geography, geopolitical, whatever. She's very impressive. Need I remind you?
Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically, that's wrong.
I mean, wow. The enlightened Kamala Harris. Did she write a dissertation? Was she quoting from a dissertation on that? That was incredible. That was her in an interview explaining it. That was not her talking to a room full of second graders. And if she had something more impressive to say, I don't think she was like, how do I explain this conflict to these rubes? I think this is her on the spot saying, I'm going to try to make it simple because that's the only thing I got. Right? Like, that was what she knew about it. That was what she could hold on to and retain. And so that was her answer. Ukraine is a country in Europe, and it's small, and Russia's a big country, and it attacked the little country, and we know that to be bad. Like, it is, it's just retarded. It's terrible. Okay. So that's where she's at on this. But we're going to go on because she's definitely probably smart about it today, right? Furthermore, Ms. Harris said that those who would have Ukraine trade territory for peace were supporting proposals of surrender, a dig at former President Donald J. Trump, a Republican opponent, and his skepticism of aid for Kiev. Yes, that would be a proposal of surrender. Here's the thing. Like, yes, it's probably time. The average age of the soldiers is 45. They're drafting women. People are fleeing across. They're just running out of people. They're running out of tanks. The Kursk invasion, they lost over 100 tanks on a week-long morale-boosting incursion into Russia. They have no artillery. They have no armor. They have no people. And it'll eventually go to Kiev's doorstep. Like, yes, proposal of surrender. Those people might be supporting that. Why not at this point? We're gonna kill every man, woman, and child. Let every man, woman, and child die for the flatlands of eastern Ukraine. Right? That's what they want. Where the people speak Russian. Like, is there not a time to surrender? Is there never a time you wouldn't surrender for the sake of women and children or young men, honestly? Like, at what point does Kamala Harris, how many more Ukrainian lives should die for her geopolitical pride. Okay. She added that the fight in Ukraine matters to the people of America. Why? And framed the conflict as one of the American people should recognize as highly consequential. Oh, of course it's important to us, because it's important to the military-industrial complex and the American empire, right? So it's going to be important for us, apparently. She wants us to know that's important. So now everyone that just listens and accepts stuff as it rolls into their ears as they're halfway paying attention. But here's what she says. This is why it's important to the Americans. This is why a stretch of prairie on the other side of the world being invaded by Russians, where the people there speak Russian, this is why it matters. The most important moments in our history have come when we stood up to aggressors like Putin, Ms. Harris said, warning that the Russian leader would not stop with Ukraine and would possibly even look into encroaching on NATO territory if he succeeds in his campaign. Yep, he'll never stop. He's war hungry. Look, we've thrown so much money at Ukraine, and to be fair, he hasn't been able to take the whole thing over. The Ukrainians have fought tooth and nail. And so she thinks that he's just going to say that, oh, we rolled through that. It's a 2.5-year blitzkrieg to get 20% of Ukraine. Let's move on to Poland. That's not his aspiration. No one believes that. Kamala might, because she is stupid. But no one believes. No one credibly believes that he has plans to just roll into Europe, right? This was a provoked response to NATO expansion. We know that. All right. And then when they talk about, and when we stand up to aggressors like Putin, right? We allied with Stalin. Look at the amount of people. Look, I mean, we give money to the Saudis. Look, you don't think there's some aggression going on in Gaza right now by the Israelis? And I'm not saying there's not aggression going the other way, right, with those areas. But look at it. I mean, we pick and choose who decides to be an aggressor and who's not. Or we say, hey, these guys are being aggressive, they're making plans to be an aggressive, and then years later we say, well, maybe they weren't. But that's why it's important to the American people. You got to know your history as well as Kamala Harris to realize that this war on the other side of the world is of the most import to the Americans. The Republicans have shunned Zelensky over his intervention in the upcoming election. They were angry by Zelensky's visit to an arms factory in Biden's hometown of Scranton, Pennsylvania, with top Democrats. Zelensky will meet Trump on Friday, despite early reports that the meeting had been canceled. So there's like a video of him and I don't know if Biden was there, but that Governor Shapiro, and they're all signing those bombs. They're like writing stuff on it, like I hope there's not kids underneath it, or whatever they're writing. I don't know. I'm sure they're writing freedom and democracy on it. It's sick. Like, I don't know why that's clever, but they think that that's like, I don't know. It scores well with the public to see them like, let me put my name on this thing that's going to drop with very little regard for who's underneath it. And Trump doesn't like that. He's like, oh, you're campaigning with Biden. So he said he wasn't going to go, but then Zelensky sends him a letter. And then Trump agrees to meet with him, it sounds like. Yeah, the Republican candidate Donald Trump only agreed to meet Zelensky after Zelensky begged him in a letter, which Trump immediately published. He had previously lambasted Zelensky for his unwillingness to negotiate a settlement with Russia. So that's typical Trump. He gets his feelings hurt. How dare you go against me in the campaign? Oh, but now you kowtowed and apologized and you kissed the ring, and I'm going to publish it to show people that I got you to do what I wanted you to do. He begged like a dog. He was so sad. Zelensky, he came to me. He said, Donald, I need you. I need you, and I need your weapons in a bigly way. And then now Donald Trump is extremely happy to say that, and then yep, he'll get right on board, and he'll ask Mike Pompeo if he did a good job. All right. So, Republican rival for the presidency, Donald Trump, mocked Zelensky at a campaign event as the greatest salesman on earth and accused him of refusing to make a deal with Moscow. Earlier this week, Trump also praised Russia's military capabilities, saying, "They beat Hitler. They beat Napoleon. That's what they do. They fight." They indeed do. And the news from the battlefield are not in Ukraine's favor. Russian forces have surrounded Ugledar, which I believe is home to the orcs. I don't know. What an ugly name for a town. A mining city that constituted Ukrainian bulwark in its southern eastern defenses. Look, and it goes on, basically to say what I've been saying is Ukraine can't win the war. But this tone deafness, and just to see the utter lack of intelligence by both candidates. I mean, Kamala's worse, but Trump's still very, very bad. He only looks like a great option if your only two options are Trump or Harris. Otherwise, very disappointing. So, check out Moon of Alabama. These articles are always great, or pieces, I don't know what the guy calls them, but they're always great, full of information. And look, this long-range missile thing, for as much as I'm complaining about how dumb our candidates are, the fact that Burns and Biden and Blinken or whoever it is, the one red line they haven't crossed is these missiles. Let's pray to God that they still hold on to that and don't allow Zelensky to shoot long-range missiles into Russia, because, I mean, that is putting a bow on World War III, right? And World War III has not happened, right? Obviously. No world war has happened with nuclear weapons. And it's not like if the war had happened in 46 and everybody had a half dozen of them or something. Like, everybody has thousands of nukes that would be involved in this. And it would be catastrophic, might not be the word for it, right? So let's keep praying that there's at least 2 brain cells rubbing together in the State Department that know not to do this shit. Okay, moving on. Mark Zuckerberg, this is a little bit lighter, has entered his libertarian era, is what these articles are saying. Insiders are telling people that Mark Zuckerberg now identifies his political alignment as libertarian. This Business Insider article says, in private, Zuckerberg identifies with the libertarian ideology. Zuckerberg is trying to repair his image with Republicans who've accused him of anti-conservative bias, and his refusal to talk politics is distinct among his peers. Okay. I've never met a libertarian who refuses to talk politics. That's why every one of us has a podcast or annoys his family at holidays or whatever. So first off, I don't know if that sounds like a real libertarian. And then his number one way to repair his image with Republicans is to say that he's a libertarian. I guess maybe you could say like, that's kind of a bridge between Democrat and Republican. I don't view it as such, but some do. Anyhow, this was big news. Some people are very excited. The one of us memes and thinking that he's going to just become a gruesome twosome with Elon Musk, who's, I don't know that he's a libertarian, but he's certainly a fellow traveler, at least in trying to protect freedoms, I think. And then what you see mostly I've seen is a lot of libertarians wanting their recompense or their restitution for the stuff that Zuckerberg's done. He's canceled a lot and shut out a lot of libertarian stuff. He was bad during COVID. He blocked, he was not good with the First Amendment. There's a lot of people calling for their money and they're very upset that Zuckerberg is calling himself a libertarian. Now, that should come as no surprise. Every libertarian's favorite thing to do is tell other libertarians that they aren't real libertarians. That being said, I do understand the frustration where all of a sudden one guy who has really no past of that would to be displayed that would show him as a libertarian or having libertarian ethos or ideas or notions even. I can see where that does rub you the wrong way. And it might even rub me the wrong way a little bit too, right? I might not be too different. But for all the people that are coming out on X or social media and they're just trying to rake him over the coals and say, damned you for saying you're a libertarian. How dare you? You have no right. You're this, you're that. I gotta say that's very, very tone deaf. Okay? I get it. You worked hard. You read all the Murray Rothbard books, and you can say every name of every Austrian economist you can think of, yada yada yada. And now you're mad that he gets the title that you have or something. But here's the thing. Maybe he's not a libertarian. Maybe he never. I doubt he is. I don't think he is currently, and maybe he'll never be one. But if he does have some inclination to call himself a libertarian, it might be because he's finding something attractive about it or something's nudging him in that direction. Okay? So, us libertarians are self-righteous. I get that, myself included. But instead of just getting up on our high horse and saying, up your ass, whatever, why not say, okay, you're calling yourself a libertarian. Let's make you a good one. Let's work with you. Let's look. If he turns out that he's not a libertarian, we can say, yeah, we knew he wasn't, but we had to try. What's wrong with trying to guide him in the direction? What if we even fall short? What if we work so hard to make him a libertarian and he's not a libertarian? It turns out he's not, but he's a good lefty. Or maybe he just becomes something more of an independent. That's still a success. What if we only get him to be a libertarian? Not a libertarian. What if we only get him, though, to agree with us very, very strongly on one core libertarian policy? And he's like, no, I'm not a libertarian. I'm not a libertarian. But man, this libertarian policy, like whatever, foreign policy or freedom of speech or the drug war or ending the Fed. What if he becomes passionate about one of those? And what do? We try to just sour the whole thing by telling him you're good for nothing, we'll never forgive you. One Zuckerberg that has one good libertarian notion is likely going to be more effective than 20,000 perfect libertarians like myself that are, just getting mad, sharing Scott Horton posts on Twitter, right? Talking to each other at the bar. Like, one thing Zuckerberg latches onto, right? And throws his billions of dollars at. He could do way more than all of us just perfect 10 little autistic libertarians sitting in mom's basement or whatever, right? Whatever we want to drag ourselves for. He could do so much more good than likely so many of us. And so maybe the best thing we could ever do is encourage him and push him in the right direction and say, yeah, come on over to our side. And look, if you don't like it, fine. But if you do have these concerns about the Federal Reserve, use us as a resource. We'll tell you all about it. We'll make you hate the Federal Reserve, and we'll cheer you, and we'll put a wreath around your whatever name, and we'll throw flower petals in front of you as you walk around. And whether you're a libertarian or not, if you throw your $1 billion at some libertarian cause, then bring it on. What a great ally. And you can call yourself a libertarian. You can call yourself Mark Rothbard Zuckerberg for all we care. Let's get something done. Like, I don't know why we're going to just immediately disavow a guy. Even though it likely might not work or not, there's a ton of people that call themselves libertarians that aren't. I had a college professor that thought Dinesh D'Souza was a libertarian. Bill Maher's called himself a libertarian. Mark Zuckerberg might not be meaning what some of us are hoping. But let's see. Let's test the waters. Let's throw some bait out there, see if we can't get on board with them. All right. Last thing. there was a whistleblower at a congressional hearing, and it's about 3 minutes long, and I just want to play this for you. You guys probably could surmise what my estimation is of your average FBI guy. This guy's a little bit different, and see if you can notice anything that you think stands out as something maybe different in what he says from what you think he would generate. He's retiring this day.
And then I want to turn the rest of my time to Mr. Jordan.
Yes, sir. I would just say that I consider the hearing today my last act of service as a public servant for the United States of America. And I'll give you my professional opinion. I was an intel professional for our country for many years, and I would give recommendations, and I'd also look at indications and warnings. So I would offer this to the American people as my warning to them. Since this is a warning to the American people, I say, I personally have no confidence that the FBI will rein in its own conduct. I've been persecuted along with Garrett, Steve and Kyle, and countless other whistleblowers. It is my opinion that the Bureau used reprisal and fear to control the workforce. It has been a seemingly effective tactic. I personally believe that there are no current effective checks and balances against them conducting lawless action with any type of correction in a legitimate time frame. I welcome the work of the IG, but I think any type of lawless action, there's no legitimate time frame to rein them back in. Their ability to overclassify information can allow them to stonewall forever. To the American people, you have a duty as a citizen to vote, and I strongly urge you to do so. It's how you participate in the American experience. I know people have doubts about election integrity, but you must vote. It is your claim. Stake your claim and don't forfeit it willingly. Have your voice heard. My other recommendations are in the natural order. First, vote. The second is the Second Amendment. Arm yourself and know how to defend yourself. Make 3 to 4 friends in your neighborhood and promise to come to each other's mutual aid in times of hardship. And during the Great Depression, people stocked up a pantry. So I think that's a good practice, especially in our economic times, and make sure you have 3 to 4 months of food. And as a person of faith, I'd say pray the rosary, go to the First Friday devotions. That's for everybody, all my brothers and sisters of all faiths, and I know I'm Catholic, and read the gospel of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and live it every day. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for the time.
You know, Mr. Allen,
Whoa. Okay. Well, that was one whistle blown. I'll tell you that much. That was, I don't believe, that might have been on Fox. I guarantee that wasn't on CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, nothing like that. Interesting that an FBI whistleblower saying stuff, basically saying, load up on guns and grab your friends, basically quoting Kurt Cobain, and then also saying, and start prepping. A little ominous. It's not supposed to be such a dark ending to this podcast. Look, I'm excited to have that guy come out and say, look, this deep state has no checks and balances that are effective. And bring on the inspector general, but that's not going to work either. He's basically saying, look, they run this show. There's no checks and balances. This idea of the government that our Constitution tried to construct is it's done. So interesting to hear him speak like that in front of Congress. And I don't know if any of that was bad advice. Maybe follow suit on that guy. It wouldn't hurt. All right. That is the podcast. We will catch you on the next one. Thanks for listening.